is happening, fellow fantasy GMs? I'm JJ Wang. He's the bearded one, DJ Dub, and with our powers combined, we are the Fantasy Couriers.
What is up, JJ Wang? How you doing tonight?
Doing good. Just got home from vacation, ready to go.
Yes. And we want to welcome everybody. This is a special quarterback edition of the Fantasy Curious. This is a bonus episode. We're going to do bonus episodes with rankings because one of our goals was not to have a full ranking show. Everybody does that. You know the rankings. You can find them online, but people have been asking. So what are we, if not men of the people? So we created some rankings that we want to share with you tonight. A couple other things. If you are watching us on YouTube, there's a fun little thing. If you look at the bottom right, it says Fantasy Couriers. If you click on it, you can subscribe to us right there. We want to welcome all of our friends from Apple Podcast for joining us. We noticed that we are now going big time. We are on Apple. I'm going to mention that at least a dozen times this week because I was like, wow, Apple feels like big time. Spotify is pretty big. Google's pretty big, but we just hit Apple, and that's where apparently people have been listening to us for a while, and I missed it somehow or another along the way. But we're going to do just a brief little introduction. All of our rankings will be up on the Facebook. Wow, I'm an old guy. They'll be up on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can check them out there. Bust our chops because that's really the goal of the show tonight. We're going to introduce our rankings. We each did a different method of drafting that we looked at, and we'll explain that before we get in. We're going to tell a little bit why we did a couple of things, and the other person is going to bust our chops for what we did. Are you ready? Are you ready, Mr. JJ Way?
Ready to go. Let's do this. I am feeling a little big time now that we're on Apple Podcasts. I mean, I'm gotta kind of get my excitement down a little bit here.
And here we go. So you can see we're going all fancy too. Look, we have pictures on our screen. If you're watching YouTube, if you're podcasting us, then all of this talk about the screen. Sorry, check us out on YouTube and also subscribe because that's also one of our goals this week. We're going to push when you watch the Wednesday episode. We're looking for 100 viewers. We want to get there. We're at 15 and 100 is a goal this season. We want to get to 100 subscribers. So click on that subscribe button and join us. But I'm going to start out with what is the standard rankings, just numerical rankings 1 through 36. I got 36 rankings up here. We're going to look at the first 16, then we'll look at 17 through 32. We used half point PPR and Fantasy Pros to look at our stats as we were focusing on these rankings, but some of the rankings are gut filling. Some of them are based upon last year's performance. Some of them are, we just don't like that guy. And you will see some differences in between my rankings and JJ Wang's rankings. And he's going to look at some of mine in a moment and say, hey, whoa, what are you doing? So looking at my rankings here, I chose the obvious for number one, Patrick Mahomes. He doesn't always end up as number one because a lot of times he might fall down. He might slip because he's just so consistent that those outlier performances of other guys might send him down. But I feel my two big shockers on here. I'm gonna let you hit the second one. My first one, I'm a Lamar Jackson guy. I like running quarterbacks, which is why Mahomes, Jackson, and Murray are my 1, 2, 3. Allen is mixed in with them, but he goes at 4 because he does have a running, but I think the running floor of those top 3 guys is so much better. And my big shock that I was surprised you agreed with more than I thought you would was number 5 with Tom Brady, because I just think he is going to throw for a bajillion yards. Him and Aaron Rodgers, to me, are almost the same human beings this year. They're going to throw a bajillion yards and just rock it out. And I had to make number 16 your boy just to wrap out my top 16 with Trevor Lawrence to make you happy because I know your love for that man. So, JJ Wang, sending me through the ringer.
Well, I don't have a lot of issues here. I mean, it looks like pretty much standard the way the quarterbacks go, like that 5, 6, 7, and 8 is pretty much how I have my guys. I have Dak a little higher than that, but I mean, still in the same frame there. I would probably have Trevor Lawrence a little higher. Of course, I'm super high on that guy. It's probably like my favorite player. But speaking of my favorite player, this is probably the one that hurts the most is Josh Allen being at number 4. I think with me, him and Patrick Mahomes are by far the 1 and 2 quarterback in the league. Then there's a step down because I think those other guys are a little, like especially Kyler's a little smaller, and then Lamar Jackson relies a lot on his legs. So I mean, I think Josh Allen combines the best of both worlds there. He's got that Cam Newton effect where he's going to get those rushing touchdowns. Like he's a big dude. He's pretty much their goal line back. So I would definitely have him up at number 2 there. But I mean, I understand. And then probably my next biggest quarrel is Jalen Hurts here at Jalen Hurts at number 10. I've heard rumblings of him being one
Trade.
of they're bringing in Watson for trade, but who knows? That's neither here nor there. Probably end up being Jalen Hurts, but I have a hard time putting my season on the back of Jalen Hurts here because you got him as your number 10 quarterback. Uh, that means you're going to be drafting him pretty high and as your QB1. I just don't think I want to ride Jalen Hurts with his limited experience of what he can. I mean, he can run, but that's about all we've seen him be able to do. We don't. I don't think he's really a great passer. And we know Tannehill and Stafford. They're going to do the job. Even Matt Ryan. I think there's just a lot of question marks there with Jalen Hurts, and I'm not willing to put my fantasy year on the line with Jalen Hurts. But overall, I mean, it's pretty much standard. Maybe have two a little high there, but
I can't have him
I
too high.
understand I understand your fandom there.
Yeah, Jalen, I'll be honest, Jalen Hurts, would I draft him as my 10th quarterback? No, but I think he could fall that far. He could land that high rather, because there's just, for me, it's the running quarterback. It's the running quarterback that gets in there. You look at Tannehill's going to throw for a bunch of yards with those weapons. Stafford's going to have to throw with Akers out, and Matt Ryan, the same kind of idea. But the running, you get more points for running than you do for passing. He's got to get, that's really where he fell in. So let's move on to my next group of guys here, if they lets me. Okay, and this is 17 through 36. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here going through them. I will note that if you ever have to make Instagram posts, Roethlisberger is a very long name, and he just messes up all of my fonts. But I look in here and I think a lot of our differences fall upon rookies and where we think rookies are going to go. And I'll let you hit on some of that in a moment. I do have, my arch nemesis Cam Newton up there at 22. Derek Carr, I almost find that I should have him in the teens somewhere sometimes, I feel, because he's just that in a two quarterback league. I love having Derek Carr because he's just that guy of consistency. 28 and 33, I have Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock. I have no clue who's going to start. And it's just by dumb luck they're beside each other. So like I have them within the range. And a lot of the guys who I feel are going to share seasons I have closer to each other. And then the one that I think will be your most contentious one you'll get into more in a second is I have Jimmy G at 21 and Trey Lance at 35 because I'm starting more and more to believe the 49ers are a good team. And I think if they are a good team, that Jimmy G is going to survive the season, especially with Trey Lance's limited play time. Trey Lance is a stud. I'm a huge fan. I love Trey Lance. I was shocked when there were rumblings of them possibly taking Mac Jones at 3. I thought that was stupid. But unlike with the Dolphins last year, where Fitzpatrick was pulled out, the 49ers have a defense and weapons that could get them farther than where the Dolphins were last year. So pulling Fitzpatrick, while I didn't agree with it, made more sense to get Tua time under his belt. Whereas Jimmy G is the team, he's taking them to the Super Bowl. And if they're good, why risk a Super Bowl championship or a chance at the Super Bowl to give their future, who would totally be their future, and I believe that a chance just to play when you could ride Jimmy throughout the year, let him get you a good run in the playoffs and trade him for the farm. So here you go for it.
All right, so the Kirk Cousins, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Ben Roethlisberger, Derek Carr. I agree with that. I mean, I think that's where they belong. So as far as like what I'm disagreeing with here, I think Drew Lock is going to be the starter in Denver. So I would probably have him up there at 28 instead of Teddy Bridgewater. But and then I still think Jameis is going to be starting for the Saints. And by the way, I know this isn't quarterback related, but with Michael Thomas being out, how bad does that Saints team really look? I mean, that offense is really bad, but we'll get into that at a later date. But so I would have Jameis over Taysom. I don't know if I would have Jameis at 24, but I mean, I would have that reversed. But my biggest issue is Justin Fields at 29 and Trey Lance at 35. I definitely think Justin Fields is going to be the starter pretty early. So I would put Justin Fields way higher because I think once he comes in, he's going to be an elite option at quarterback. I don't really have much doubt about that. And then I was also going in your train of think line of thinking with Jimmy Garoppolo starting and then playing well enough, to not get benched. But if Kyle Shanahan thinks Trey Lance is better than Jimmy Garoppolo, why wouldn't Kyle Shanahan start Trey Lance over Jimmy? He doesn't. Kyle Shanahan doesn't have to prove anything. I mean, we've already seen him do it with RG3, so we know he can do it with that style of quarterback. And I think that's the style of quarterback he would rather enjoy playing with because they can run a lot more. So that's probably my biggest issues with that. I probably have Baker a little higher too. I think Baker's going to have a pretty decent season. I put him up over Derek Carr. Derek Carr area. But overall, I mean, their rankings is what you feel. I mean, they can't be wrong, right?
Yet. They can't be
Yeah.
wrong yet. And
Yeah.
the real key thing is if you look at quarterbacks and you go to scoring, I don't have the exact stats in front of me. There's just a preview show, but if you look quarterback 10 through say 26, the difference between those quarterbacks is a mere couple points a week, not enough that really changes because the quarterback, it's a passing league, so they're gonna pass some weeks, but when you get to the farther down you go, the more you think those are guys that will have some of those weeks. Like the Kirk Cousins had that, couple of pass where he had the low pass attempts last year, and Teddy and have the duos are later because I see Justin Fields playing, but I see Andy Dalton starting the season. I think that'll take away. Same thing with Teddy and Drew Lock. I think they're going to play back and forth. And with Taysom, I just think Sean Payton is that stubborn and that egotistical that he's going to play him. But that'll be, I believe, talked about some in our Wednesday episode as well when we talk about the travesty known as the Saints. Now let's go on to you. So JJ Wang did something, a new strategy of drafting that he prefers to use. And I'm hit or miss. I go usually best player. I have a little bit of tier based and numerical rankings, but this is called tier based rankings. I was trying to explain it to a guy today, a friend of mine, how tier based rankings work. So you see on the screen, he has 8 tiers of quarterback. The idea is you look at where you want to fall. So if I'm saying I want to spend a high pick on a quarterback, I'm looking at tier one. If I'm like, hey, you know what? I want like a middle of the road kind of guy, probably tier five. And you look at tier five, and in tier five, you see some names. All of those guys, according to JJ Wang and his tiers, he considers them close to the same guy. And as I mentioned in the last segment, really in my rankings, 10 to 25, there's not much of a difference fantasy point wise. So if you get to tier five, and we'll talk more about the tiers in a moment, but if I see that Justin Fields gets drafted, I'm like, okay, so there's 6 guys left in my tier. I got to keep an eye on that. And then as you see the tier get to about maybe halfway or so, you say, okay, I now need to focus so that I get within that tier of the player I want. I'm not reaching for certain areas. I'm not saying that, and I'm willing in that tier to take Trey Lance or Justin Fields or Kirk Cousins or Matt Ryan or Derek Carr or Baker Mayfield or Tua. Any of those guys are considered equal to me in that tier because their points or where I think they will end are relatively within that range. And what you do when you create a draft board is you would tier your running backs, and you will see this: your running backs, your receivers, your tight ends, your quarterbacks, your defenses and kickers. We're not going to talk about those guys, but you would tier them, and you would have your tiers going down. So if you see you have your tier one quarterbacks, and you're not going, hey, all I got left are tier one quarterbacks and tier one running backs, tier one receivers, and I got to grab a quarterback. You still have to balance it within your draft strategy. Like for me, I don't know where you would fall, and you can talk about it more in a second here, JJ Wang, is my tier one quarterbacks would probably align in a standard one quarterback league around my tier 3 or 4 running backs, maybe. And so you would align your tiers to be. So I'm not going to say, hey, my tier one running backs, McCaffrey, Cook, or whatnot, are gone. Now I got to take Allen. You still line up your tiers, and that's sort of how you work through your positions. So add more to tiers, and then tell us about tiers 1 through 4.
Yeah, so I always got in the habit of going after a certain quarterback because they're ranked at a certain spot. And it would always get me in trouble. So, like you said, there's always a range of quarterbacks that can score probably the same amount of points. So don't try not to focus yourself on just that one guy. Focus yourself on that group of guys. That way, if there's 4 people left in that tier, and you got say 7 or 8 picks until your next pick on the turnaround, you're like, all right, I'm pretty sure one of those guys will be there. So let me go ahead and grab this running back that I'm pretty sure won't be, and I'll still get one of those your tier quarterbacks that I want. So that's how I like to see it. It helps me a little bit. It gives me a wider view of how things work. But top four tiers here. I think I got 13, 12 or 13 of the top ones, and then everybody else falls into place. But like in my tier one, I think is Mahomes and Allen. You can go either way. I think they're both at the elite options that you have. They're both going to score a lot of points. And I put like Stafford in tier three because I think they're going to throw the ball a lot. As you see, that's like that tier three is my older guys that are going to throw the ball a lot. Did throw Justin Herbert in there because I mean he's done it last year. So I mean I'm here or there on Herbert, but that's my older crew because they're going to throw for a lot of yards. Um, just talking about Russell Wilson, I'll let you get on that. But of course, I got Trevor Lawrence and Burrow and Tannehill at the end. Because that Burrow is still coming back from that injury. So I'm kind of hesitant on that. And then Tannehill's just been solid. And of course, we know about Trevor Lawrence. He's just great. So go ahead and bust my chops a little bit there. What do you got?
Really, I look at yours, and we both made rankings both the other ways as we did it. We both did them backwards. So you made your tiers, then you made your ranks. I made my ranks, and I made my tiers. And my first tier was the first four I had them before. So Mahomes, Allen, Murray, and Jackson. I wouldn't be hesitant to put Dak in there. Like I moved him back only because he's little twerky injuries are showing up with his shoulder recently that made me a little worried. But Russell Wilson is the guy that scares me. And I've mentioned that before in some of our previous shows talking about the inconsistency, and I would almost push him to four. And your tier four is where I would almost like him. He's the of, and I my notes really say of this load here. Russell Wilson's my only outlier. I'd probably move him to tier four. Tier three is what I would call the gunslingers. Brady, Rogers, Stafford, and Herbert are going to throw for a ton of yards. Herbert, there's hit or miss if he's going to run. I don't think he's going to run as much because he won't have to. But those are the gunslingers. Tiers 1 and 2 are the runners, and tiers 4 are the could be pretty good. Joe Burrow worries me that he's not in camp so far. He's not looking great. I've surprisingly, as a Dolphins fan, always thought Tannehill was a solid quarterback. Never a great quarterback, but a solid quarterback. Even for the Dolphins, he just had bad coaching. So he goes to good coaching with weapons, and oh, lo and behold, his stats are actually close to the same. He had a 4,000-yard season in Miami. So he's a solid quarterback. T-Law is a stud. And yeah, I like the top tier fours with the exception of Wilson. I'd move him down. So let's go through the big mess here at the end of just a gajillion guys you put
All right.
5
So
through.
the big mess here kind of goes back to you saying those 10 to 25 is pretty much the exact same thing. So that's pretty much what we got here. So I'll start out with saying I got Justin Fields and Trey Lance in tier 5. If I knew that they were going to be starting, they would definitely be in the tier 4. So I just dropped them down because there is some question marks there, but I would still take because they're going to be starting eventually. Yeah, that's the way I think. But as soon as they start, as soon as they play, they're jumping up into that tier 4 quarterback. But all the rest of those guys, I mean, they're all going to score about the same amount of points. You got some runners in there. You got Hurts. You got Zach Wilson. I don't really see a lot of difference. And as far as then you got 7 and 8, this is where just the confusion goes. You got guys that may start, guys that may not start. You just have no idea. Like, see, when I got Winston as my starter in New Orleans, I got Cam as my starter in New England, and Locke as my starter in Denver. And then just to be, maybe a dart throw there, I threw Jacob Eason in because he might get a few starts in there. You just never know. He could help somebody. But it's not, we never know if Carson Wentz is actually going to play. I mean, he's a pretty unreliable quarterback these days. So you really can't put all your eggs in that basket. So, why not? Let's see what happens. What do you got?
So yeah, so it's Eason just makes me laugh. That's also like you just wanted me to type more words into this picture as I made it. Let's see. You just want to look smart because you drafted him in one of our dynasties. Let's get the honest truth out about Eason, and we'll leave him there because we shouldn't be discussing Eason on this show. Looking up you like your rookies high, and I told you I think Fields and Lance are studs. We just have them inverted as to who we think is going to start, who's going to get more starts as they are going. That I wouldn't want to invest, and we are looking like dual quarterback league. I would draft them, but make sure I had like a high floor 3 in case they don't play, or even just get Dalton and Garoppolo as my insurance. So it is those are our big differences, really. Fields and Lance and Winston, we have the starters inverted as to who we think they're going to be, and I'm higher on Hurts, I would, if I was tiering, I believe Hurts would fall into my 4 tier just with the running. And otherwise, we are pretty close. I put in my notes like you hate Carson Wentz. I pretty much have gathered that over time. He's let me down a lot, but for some reason, I like him, and he will he will be there as we're going through the season. So I've heard talk he might be back week 1. Who knows? But we'll go from there.
Yeah, we'll go
So
for it. Like I said, I just don't got a lot of faith in a lot of faith in Wentz at the moment. If he comes back, starts playing well, I don't have any issues with moving the guy up. I mean, I don't hate Wentz. I like Wentz. Just unreliable. I mean, worst thing you can have is an unreliable quarterback.
yeah. So those were our quarterback rankings in this special edition, a little longer than we thought, but we always said it would be because we yap way too much. We hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to click the subscribe button on our YouTube. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, Instagram, listen to us on your favorite podcast, and send us some tweets as we'll post these on there and react to what you think of our rankings. Is JJ Wang always wrong? Probably. Is DJ Dove always right? You know it. So JJ Wang, give us some last thoughts and take us out of here.
All right, had a lot of fun there. I'm not a big rankings guy, so I mean, I did enjoy a little more after I did it. So looking forward to doing the running backs and the wide receivers. And as always, trust yourself and trust the process.